Yogis are practicing Satipatthāna Vipassana meditation. When you practice, what object do yogis take? Normally yogis say, in Vipassana meditation, everything becomes the object. Everything that is prominent, everything that is evident at the present moment is the object of Vipassana meditation. But that needs some qualification, that everything must be something that belongs to the ultimate reality, Paramattha Dhamma. There are two kinds of reality taught in Buddhism. Viññāti and Paramattha. The apparent reality and the ultimate reality. The apparent reality is called concept or viññāti. When you say it is a man, it is a woman, that is truth. But that truth is just according to the convention. But in the ultimate analysis, there is no such thing as a man, there is no such thing as a woman, there is no such thing as a living entity. But just the combination of the five aggregates, Rupa, Vedana, Saññā, Saṅkhāra, Viññāna, metta aggregates, feeling aggregates, perception aggregates, volitional formation aggregates, and consciousness aggregates. It is just the combination of the five aggregates. As you can say, only just Namarupa, mind and matter. So mind and matter are the ultimate realities. When mind and matter are combined as a being, then we call it a being or a man or a woman. A man or a woman or a being is the name we give to this combination of mind and matter. So a man or a woman or a being actually exists only in the imagination of people. They have no individual essence. They have no existence of their own. The names we give to people or things, and also people or things that are represented by these names, are called apparent reality or concept, viññāti. From this apparent reality, we extract or we take out the ultimate reality. So from the man, from the woman, we get mind and matter. Mind and matter are ultimate realities because they really exist. and they can be experienced and they can be seen by oneself through practice of meditation. So concepts are those that have no real existence of their own, but they exist in people's mind, and we use a lot of concepts in our daily lives. But when we practice Vipassana meditation, we do not take concepts as object, because the purpose of Vipassana meditation or the functions of Vipassana meditation is to see the Nama Rupa, to see the mind and matter, to see that things are impermanent, suffering and non-self. But concept has no such things as impermanence, suffering and non-self, because we do not know when concepts comes into being or when they disappear. We don't know. So they do not have these three characteristics: nature, dukkha, anatta, impermanent, suffering and non-self. And these three characteristics are important to see, because only when you see these three characteristics, nature, dukkha, and anatta, do you want to get away from suffering. If you don't see the three characteristics, you think life is pleasant, like life is really to be happy. But when you see the three characteristics, you want to get away from suffering, you want to get out of samsara. So it is important that you see the three characteristics: impermanence, suffering and non-self. And these three characteristics are found only in the ultimate reality and not in concepts. So you know there are four ultimate reality taught in Buddhism: Citta, consciousness; Cittasika, mental factors; Rupa, matter; and Nibbana. Among these four, a great part of consciousness, a great part of mental factors, the matter of material properties are the object of Vipassana meditation. Also, Vipassana meditation takes only what belongs to mundane sphere and not those that belong to supramundane sphere. There are types of consciousness that are called supramundane, that arise at the moment of enlightenment, and also the mental factors accompanying them. These are not taken as object simply because they are not yet attained by those who practice Vipassana meditation. When you practice Vipassana meditation, you watch your mind, you watch your emotion, and you watch your consciousness, you watch mental states and so on. Only that you experience, only those that arise in your mind, you can take as object. So the object of Vipassana meditation is first the ultimate reality. Among the ultimate reality, those that belong to mundane sphere, not supramundane sphere. A meditator who has gained lower stage of enlightenment may practice Vipassana meditation, and he or she could take the supramundane consciousness, his or her supramundane consciousness, as object of Vipassana meditation. But although he or she may dwell on the supramundane consciousness, there is no benefit of getting rid of mental defilements regarding that consciousness. Because the supramundane consciousness is not the object of mental defilements. A meditator takes what belongs to the mundane sphere. In the mundane sphere, there are like jhana consciousness and non-jhana consciousness. Jhana consciousness is that which arises in a person who practices samatha meditation or calm meditation, who takes mostly a concept as an object of meditation, who develops samadhi on it, and he or she reach the stage of jhana. At that moment, consciousness arises in him or her. That consciousness is called jhana consciousness. Jhana consciousness can be taken as object of Vipassana meditation, but only those meditators who have attained jhana can take jhana as object of meditation. If we have not attained jhana, we are Vipassana meditators, we do not have attained jhana, we cannot take jhana as an object of meditation simply because we have not attained jhana. That is for direct Vipassana. So there are two kinds of Vipassana: direct Vipassana, Pichaka Vipassana, and inferential Vipassana, Anumana. Pichaka and Anumana, direct and inferential. First, you get the direct Vipassana. That means you put your mind on the objects and you come to see these objects as impermanence, suffering, and non-self. After you have seen the real object, you have observed as impermanence, suffering, and non-self. You can make an inference that just as this object I am observing is impermanent, suffering, and non-self, so the objects, so the other objects will be impermanent, suffering and non-self. In that way, you practice inferential vipassana on the other phenomena which you do not actually experience. But inferential vipassana must come only after direct vipassana. First, you have to see that a certain object is impermanent. Only after that you can infer that just as this is impermanent, so other objects are impermanent. In direct vipassana, you take the object what you can experience or what you have experienced. If you have not experienced jhana, then you cannot take jhana as object of vipassana. So you can take non-jhana consciousness and the mental factors along with these types of consciousness as the object of meditation. Among the non-jhana consciousness, those that arise only in the minds of Arahant cannot be taken as object, because those who are not Arahant cannot have experienced those types of consciousness. So these types of consciousness cannot be taken as object of meditation. Actually, there are just a few types of consciousness and mental factors and all material properties that can be the object of Vipassana meditation. Among those that are non-jhana consciousness or among those that are material properties, only those objects that are evident to the yogi are to be taken as object. So they are apparent reality and ultimate reality. You have to take ultimate reality as object. Mundane and supramundane. You have to take mundane as object of meditation, and they are direct vipassana and inferential vipassana. You have to practice direct vipassana first, and then inferential vipassana. And vipassana begins with what is evident to the yogi, what you can observe easily. So at the beginning of vipassana, you don't try to understand or you don't try to see things that are subtle, that cannot be easily seen. So you begin with what is evident to you, what is easy to comprehend. That is one important thing. Because if you try to see those, they are not evident. Because they are not evident, you don't see them clearly. And if you don't see them clearly, you don't see their characteristics, and you don't see them as impermanent, suffering, and non-self. So Vipassana begins with what is evident, what is prominent, what is easy to see. And also there are two kinds of object, internal object and external object, Ijjhata and Bheda. Internal means that arises in your mind and in your body that you really experience. External bheda means those that arise in other people and also those that are in outside things like trees and mountains and so on. Although both internal and external objects are the objects of Vipassana meditation, you must concentrate on the internal objects. Because only the internal objects are evident to you. For example, the minds of another person, you don't know the minds of another person. You don't see the minds of another person, but you may infer that person is angry, or that person is happy, or that person is discouraged, that person is elated, and so on. But you don't really see for yourself his or her state of mind. But what is happening in you, what is happening in your mind, you really know whether you are really angry or you are really happy or any other. It is important that yogi should lay emphasis on observing the objects that are internal. That means your own states of mind, your own types of consciousness, your own material properties, sensation in the body and others. After you have observed the internal objects and comes to know them as impermanent, suffering, and non-self, then you may do the inferential vipassana on the external objects, such as mind. My mind is impermanent. So the consciousness of other people is impermanent, and so on. Sometimes such understanding just comes by itself, that you don't have to deliberately think about it. That understanding comes by itself. Although both internal objects and external objects are the objects of Vipassana meditation, meditators should lay emphasis on observing the internal objects as much as they can. Instead of looking for outside object, instead of searching for outside object, meditators should concentrate on the objects that are in your mind and in your body. Looking for some outside object is actually a distraction. By doing that, your concentration and understanding cannot develop. Next, the object of Vipassana is the present object. Here also, in inferential Vipassana, Meditator can take the past object and the future objects as the object of Vipassana meditation. But here also, first, there must be direct understanding, direct observation, direct Vipassana on the object that are evident to you. That which is evident to you is actually that which is present at the moment. So you take the object at the present moment as the object of meditation and try to be mindful of it or make mental notes of it and try to see its characteristics, try to see that it is impermanent, it is suffering, and it is non-self. After you have seen the present object, you clearly see the present objects as impermanent, suffering, and non-self, and you may do inference or you may do inferential vipassana. Just as this present object is impermanent, so the objects in the past were impermanent. And the objects in the future will be impermanent. That kinds of contemplation or that kinds of comprehension comes to you actually almost by itself. After seeing the present object as impermanent, suffering, and non-self, you just come to see that just as this is impermanent, and so the other are impermanent. What is important for a Vipassana yogi is the object at the present moment. That is because only the object at the present moment can be observed and can be seen clearly. An object that is past now cannot be observed. However much you may recall it to your mind, you do not see it clearly, you cannot see its characteristics and so on. And the objects that are to come, since they are not yet here, you cannot look at them, you cannot see them, you cannot observe them. So you cannot understand their true nature. Only the object at the present moment lends itself to observation, investigation, or comprehending. So the object at the present is the most important, and that object at the present moment can be any of ultimate reality, your thoughts, your emotion, sensation in your body, the rising and falling of the abdomen, the breathing in and out. And there are many things. And Buddha said, Atitan nanagamaya napati kinke anagata. Yada titan binanta apatinja anagatam. Pijopaninja yandaman tata tata vipassati. Asahira asangopan tawida anujuhaye. Buddha said. Do not let the past come back to you, or do not go after the past, because the past is already past. Do not long for the future, because the future has not yet come. But a meditator who is able to be mindful of the object at the present moment, or the present moment as it arises, should develop concentration and wisdom that cannot be dragged away by wrong view or by attachment. That cannot be destroyed by wrong view and attachment. Buddha instructed his disciple to be mindful of the object at the present moment, not to go back to the past, not to long for the future, because they are not real actually. One has already passed, and so not here. The other is not yet here. So they are not here. However much you try to watch them, you will not see them clearly. And if you don't see them clearly, you cannot see their characteristics. You cannot see their characteristics of impermanence, suffering, and non-self. But the present object is different. Since present is here, as it were in front of your eyes, you can watch it, you can examine it, and you can see it clearly. When you see it clearly, you know that it arises and it disappears. Abdomen rising and falling, hearing the sound coming and going, and also other objects arising and disappearing continuously, so long as you are watching. So it is impermanent, and it is constantly oppressed by arising and disappearing, because one arises and disappears, and then another arises and then disappears, and so on. It is like being bombarded by arising and disappearing. That sense of being constantly oppressed by arising and disappearing is what we call suffering. When you practice meditation, you can see the samsara dukkha, the whole mass of suffering in your life. And also you know that you cannot do anything about it. You just have to accept it. You cannot make the impermanence permanence. You cannot make suffering happiness, and so on. So you have no control over mind and matter, and that having no control over it is what we meant by non-self. These three characteristics are important because without seeing these three characteristics, anicca, dukkha, and anatta, impermanent suffering and non-self, we cannot make progress. We cannot get to the point where we are dispassionate towards all mental and physical phenomena, dispassionate towards suffering. So it is important that we pay attention to the object at the present moment and not to be distracted to the past, not to be distracted to the future. If you think of the future and think of what will happen in the future or whatever, you are distracted. When you are distracted, you cannot make notes of the present object clearly. And if you do not see the present clearly, your concentration and understanding cannot develop. That is why sometimes people spend a lot of time and they cannot make progress in their practice. So it is important that the object we take must belong to the ultimate reality. The object we take must be the one which is easy to see, which is evident. And it must be the object which is in the present moment. So meditators should understand the object of Vipassana meditation. But if you are practicing with a teacher, you just need to follow his instruction. If you follow his instruction properly, you don't have to worry about what object it is or what you are doing and what object you are taking. If you are on your own, you should understand that Vipassana does not take concept as object. Vipassana takes ultimate reality only as object, and ultimate reality means your mind, your thoughts, your emotion, sensation in your body, movements of the body, and so on. They are all called ultimate realities. Among the ultimate reality, we concentrate on what is mundane, and among the mundane, the objects you take are mostly non-jhana consciousness and concomitant mental factors and all material properties. So these can be both external and internal, and you should concentrate more on internal object and then external object. Actually, they are to be taken as object only when they force into your mind, like when you hear the sound. And also you should concentrate on the objects at the present moment and not on those that are past or that are yet to come. When you practice Vipassana meditation, you keep this in your mind and try to be mindful of the object at the present moment. Sometimes it is the breathing or the movements of the abdomen. Sometimes your thoughts going here and there. Sometimes emotion, sometimes sensation in the body. Whatever is evident at the present moment, it is the object of Vipassana meditation. If you can just pay attention to the object at the present moment and not go back to the past, not long for the future, or not think about the future, you will develop concentration quickly. When your concentration gets developed, you will come to see the true nature of these namarupa, these objects, that they are impermanent, they are suffering, and they are no self. So you may remember there are apparent reality and ultimate reality, mundane and supramundane, direct vipassana and inferential vipassana, objects that are evident and subtle, internal and external object, present, past, and future. So among these, you need to take ultimate reality, mundane, object, direct vipassana, objects that are evident, and objects that are internal and present moment. So this is the purpose or the function of Vipassana, because Vipassana means seeing in various ways. Seeing in various ways means seeing mental and physical phenomena as impermanence, suffering, and non-self. So when you practice Vipassana, it is important that you see these three characteristics. So because of this, you practice diligently, and of course, you can experience these three characteristics when your concentration getting strengthened. We have to stop our discourse for today. By practicing Vipassana meditation, by observing every phenomena occurring at the six senses, by noting rising, falling, sitting, stretching, bending, seeing, hearing, continuously and meticulously, may all yogis be liberated from all suffering. May all meditators realize the real peace in the very near future. So